Shalom. Call Haloyim Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai Bashem Racha Kodash and Shani Kabad Gadwala Rakwab Zakwanyam Nawa Washalayakim Nawa. And that is double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone and Shalom Wabarakim Halabakarim Shaliyasharala. And that's peace and blessings to the elect of Israel. And also, as always, may a double portion of the Holy Spirit be put upon the brothers that are out there on the highways and byways, offering your bodies as a living sacrifice out there on the front lines. So real quick, I wanted to get into this article. This was written on the New York Times Post yesterday, October 1st, 2019. It says 30 minutes to devastation. China unveils terrifying nuke able to hit U.S. in half hour. And I wanted to bring this out, of course, because all of this is most definitely prophecy. So it says President Xi Jinping oversaw a parade which offered a rare look at his country's rapidly developing arsenal. The fearsome Dongfeng 41, a nuclear-armed missile that could reach the United States, or aka Babylon the Great, in 30 minutes, was among the weaponry of display as Beijing gets closer to matching Washington and other powers in arms technology. So a lot was just said right now. And through the spirit, when I was reading this article, and based upon this one paragraph, I think like maybe 2 or 3 scriptures came to mind. So first and foremost, it mentioned arsenal. It said President Xi Jinping oversaw a parade which offered a rare look at his country's rapidly developing arsenal. So we're going to jump over here, Jeremiah chapter 50. We're going to start reading at verse 22 to get all this meat. It says, a sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is a hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon, aka America, become a desolation among the nations? Because as we're reading, these other nations have nuclear missiles that are basically on par with that of America. I have laid a snare for thee. So America once was that hammer, but it's not anymore. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon. And thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. Yeah, America thinks that it can't be touched. The Lord hath opened his armory and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. What is the Lord's armory? What is the weapons of his indignation? Well, right here specifically, it's those nuclear missiles. And you see China flexing their armory right now, which is really the Lord's armory, because he's going to use these other nations in order to do what? In the midst of World War III, to shoot their missiles onto Babylon the Great, which is America. All of that is biblical prophecy. We're reading part of it right now. The Lord hath opened his armory and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord, power of the host in the land of the Chaldeans. Let's look up that word armory real quick before we go back to the article, and let's see what it says. The Lord hath opened his armory. The word armory in Hebrew is awatazar. And it says treasure, storehouse, gold. You jump down here. I'm going to highlight this, and it says what? Magazine of weapons, figuratively of God's armory. So the Lord's armory right here are referring to weapons. What kind of weapon? Weapons, nuclear weapons. Let's read that article or this paragraph again. President Xi Jinping oversaw a parade which offered a rare look at his country's rapidly developing arsenal. Another word for arsenal are weapons. Okay. The fearsome Dongfeng 41, a nuclear-armed missile that could reach the United States in 30 minutes, was among the weaponry on display as Beijing gets closer to matching Washington and other powers in arms technology. And that right there, when it says China or Beijing gets closer to matching Washington, which is America, which is Babylon, and other powers in arms technology, basically referring to their military might, that made me think of this. Isaiah chapter 14 And we're going to start first at verse 4. It says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. So now we've established who we're talking about as we continue to read down, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? Because once America was known as that golden city, where all the people of these other nations wanted to flock to America. But it says to take up this proverb against Babylon and say, how hath that oppressor ceased? Now, as we jump down, we're going to start reading at verse 9. Now, remember, Babylon, or America right here, is the topic. It says, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. So basically, hell represents death, destruction. And that's coming to America. It says, to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. Now, what does that mean? It stirreth up the dead. Who are the dead right here? Well, continuing on, it says, even all the chief ones of the earth, it hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. So the kings of the nations are the chief ones of the earth, because they run their country, and they're known as kings or presidents, if you will, like Xi Jinping over China, right? And they're also known as the dead. Why is that? Because they lack the knowledge and wisdom and understanding that was given to us, the true biblical Israelites, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So when it says, oops, my fault, Isaiah 14:9, when it says, it stirreth up the dead for thee, the dead is referring to these other nations, the chief ones, the kings, the presidents of these other nations. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nation. Now, that was important to break down because of verse 10. It says, all they shall speak and say unto thee. So all the other kings of these other nations, like Xi Jinping over China, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Because you see, America was once that hammer of the earth, and mainly because of their military might. Now these other nations are becoming strong, and they're putting they're putting money into their military might. And it talks about that in Joel, the 3rd chapter. And now they have weapons that are basically on par in the military that's getting closer to the strength of America. So they're saying, are you now become like unto us? Art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Verse 11, thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of the violent, and the noise of, thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee, because nothing but destruction and decay and violence is coming to America. And that's the point right there. So, boom. Now that paragraph was covered. Continuing on. It says, no details of the Dongfen 41 have been released, but the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington says it may have the world's longest range at 9,400 miles. So this missile, known as the Dongfen 41, can most definitely hit America. It can most definitely hit America. It has a range of 9,400 miles. Analysts say the DF-41, flying at 25 times the speed of sound, might be able to reach the United States in 30 minutes with up to 10 warheads for separate targets. Up to 10 warheads for separate targets. A technology known as MIRV, or multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. All right, it says that this missile has 10 warheads. The missile has 10 warheads that can split up basically and hit 10 different targets. And the technology for that is known as MIRV. I mean, the Lord is bad giving this technology to these Moabites, the Chinese, so-called Chinese, or multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. So this one missile has 10 warheads, but remember, the scriptures say, I'm gonna actually get Joel the second chapter, dang it. Because remember, the scriptures say that these missiles are going to be in battle array, and they're not going to hit each other. I'm gonna get right to the point. Verse 7, because 8 is a point. Verse 7, Joel 2 verse 7 says, they shall run like mighty men. Now, when you read this chapter, this is an analogy right now referring to nuclear missiles. It says, they, the nuclear missiles, shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march every one on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. When it says when they fall upon the sword right here represents the nuclear defense systems. So when they fall upon the sword or those nuclear defense systems, they shall not be wounded. So the Spirit of the Lord is going to be guiding these missiles. They're going to be like in a battle array. They're not going to break their ranks, and they're not going to hit each other. And the Lord is going to make it so that they penetrate these nuclear defense systems that America has. And these missiles are going to go past it, and they're going to hit their destination, their target, which is America, which is Babylon the Great. So these missiles that have these 10 warheads on it, when they separate, all 10 are going to hit their target, which is America. It says China's current mainstay missile, the Dongfeng 31, has a range of more than 6,990 miles that puts most of the continental United States within reach. Closer to home, today's parade sent out a clear message to Beijing's ambition to enforce claims to Taiwan, the South China Sea, and other disputed territories. The ability to project power is increasingly urgent for Chinese leaders who want to control shipping lanes and waters also claimed by Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, the Philippines, and other governments. But ultimately, these missiles are being created all for the purpose of the Lord's will, because the scriptures say what? This is Proverbs, I think it's 21. If not, I'll find it. Yeah, Proverbs 21 verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So Xi Jinping right now is creating these nuclear missiles because the Lord is working on him in order to do that, to fulfill his will, which is to completely destroy America in World War III. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So let me see if there's more. The People's Liberation Army, the world's biggest military with 2 million men and women in uniform, and the second highest annual spending after the United States, also is working on fighter planes, the first Chinese-built aircraft carrier, and nuclear-powered submarines. So we're going to get one last precept, because what did we just read? It says the People's Liberation Army, which I'm pretty sure is talking about the Beijing Army, the world's biggest military with 2 million men and women in uniform, and this is the point, and the second highest annual spending after the United States. The second highest annual spending. Check out what Joel, the 3rd chapter says. Joel 3 verse 9. We're only going to read one verse, maybe two. Joel 3 verses 9 and 10. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. The Gentiles right here are referring to the other nations, such as the Chinese, as an example, since we're talking about them. The Chinese, which are biblically Moab. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Those 2 million, whatever they said, men and women in their military. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Verse 10 is a point. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. And at one point, these other nations were weak. And they really are weak, but ultimately combined together, they're going to take out America, thus saith the Holy Scriptures. But the point right here, it says, beat your plowshares into swords. A plowshare is an agriculture equipment. It's an item for agriculture. And the same thing as a pruning hook. It says, and your pruning hooks into spears. So basically, this represents these other nations not putting their money into agriculture and farming anymore, but they're taking that money and now they're fueling their military. So it says, beat your plowshares into swords, into a weapon, into weapons, and your pruning hooks into spears. And the spear is also a weapon, of course, which is aka referring to their military. And we just read that China has spent the most money on their military next to the US. So these other nations are now what? It says, let the weak say that I am strong. That's why we first read in the book of, what was it? Jeremiah. And it says what? It said, how was the whole emerald of the earth cut asunder? And then we also read in the book of Isaiah that these other nations are going to be saying, look, are you, what is it? What did they say? How have you come basically to be like us? Oh, it says, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Because these other nations are putting money into their military might. And they're getting ready for war. So World War III is inevitable. It's in the scriptures. Nuclear missiles, as we read in Joel, the 2nd chapter, are in the scriptures as well. So once again, World War III is inevitable and it's on its way, which means what? That the microchip, the mark of the beast, has to be on its way even sooner, because the microchip will be made mandatory before World War III officially pops off and nuclear missiles with 10 warheads are going to be used. So if you want to read more of this article, like I said, it's on New York Times Post. 30 minutes to devastation. China unveils terrifying nuke able to hit U.S. in half an hour. This is all biblical prophecy. So with that being said, I pray that the elect of the nation of Israel have been edified. I want to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Lachakudash. Double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone. And peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.